Ladies and gentlemen, gentlemanly ladies, friendlies, my LGBTQ family. What's happening? What's going on? What's standing? How many push ups are you flexing to get your balance between the rational mind and the irrational mind? And balancing your femininity and masculinity. Ladies and gentlemen, Coffee with Dragon, a special get rid of Trump, Dragon versus Trump coffee cup. In the world, of course, of economics, politics, again, Trump has done a move which is not only bad business but very dangerous for world peace, not just financial and economic and good commercial relations, but overall good relations. If you haven't heard by now, the administration has imposed tariffs on China, with Trump leading the way to this tariff imposition. This time, it's of course the second time this year, a 10%, from my understanding, 10% on 200 billion worth of goods. Now, remind everybody that 1 billion is 1,000 million. Once again, 1 billion is 1,000 million. Yes, sir, 1 billion is 1,000 million. And of course, China responded. If you remember, the first set of tariffs was 50 billion on Chinese goods. So tariffs on 50 billion worth of Chinese good, or approximately 10%. Don't know what he was thinking to make such a move. Sure, there is problems to be addressed with China, but this was certainly not the way to go with China. Myself, as an advocate of good Sino world, or call it what you want, North American relations, good Western Sino relations, and good world relations with Sino. Sino, SINO, of course, stands for the totality or the global, the more ancient, if you will, Chinese civilization, including the pre-communist China, the China before the current communist China, because the Communist Party of China, of course, is still ruling as the one-party state, official socialist ideology, and of post-Mao China, right? Or Mao Zedong, post-China, of Mao Zedong, of course, the leader who Marxist, Leninist leaders. Of course, we now have Marxist, Leninist, Marxist, Leninist, Maoism as an integrated sort of transmutation of the Marxist thought. Myself, of course, a great supporter, scholar of Sino civilization. I mean, favor of good, positive relations on all levels, harmonious, and this is an important concept in, of course, Sino civilization. Again, Sino includes the history and the people of China before Mao and before Communist China, also including Communist China, present day China, China of today, still ruled by the Communist Party of China, when Xi Jinping is the chairman, right, following as the chairman of Mao Zedong, who died in 1976. So including the ancient history of China with all its rich and diverse history from more than 3,000 years ago till present era today with all the dynasty. And of course I have to remind everybody, or at least for my own recollection and reminiscence, that China during the Roman Empire, because many chauvinists in the West, West and the Roman Empire, sure, myself a scholar of the Roman Empire, know much about the Roman Empire, but I'm also, when somebody's very chauvinistic, oh, Romans and glory and Western world and all this, but China also had an empire. China also developed a good empire, and a powerful an empire, could argue, as the Romans did during the same time frame or time period as the Romans did under the Han, right? The first Han dynasty, ranging also from 300 BC till about 200 AD, right? After the was called the period, it was called the Warring States. These were several states and were brought under subjection, just like the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, of course, arose also from warfare and sort of a civil war and what have you. But back to today, of course, and many have claimed that the United States of America is like a sort of a modern day Rome. This is for another cup of coffee, and sure, there's some good good analogies, good parallels. Of course, you can only look on the dollar bill and you can see the Latin inscriptions. As a matter of fact, I have 3 US dollar bills in a few corners here, one there, one there, and one there. Of course, you have the inscription Anuit Coeptis and Novus Ordo Seclorum and E Pluribus Unum. So just there you have 3 phrases that are related to the Roman Empire, Roman mythology. And of course, for those who don't know, Anuit Coeptis means to like on the deity. Of course, it goes out back to ancient Babylon, but Anuit Coeptis is from a poem by Virgil, and it's related to Aeneas, who mythologically escaped the Trojan War, War of Troy, right? Trojan War with Achilles and Hector. And so Aeneas is fleeing the Trojan War, fleeing the destruction and catastrophe, and he goes and he's sort of a mythical founder of Rome in many ways. Of course, Romulus and Remus is, but he goes back to Aeneas, to, of course, a divine genealogy, as is Romulus and Remus, but it's also related to Aeneas. Yes, so Anuit Coeptis basically means, it's Latin for has favored our undertakings, but referring to an unspecified or a supreme kind of deity, the deity of the sky, if you will, the deity. It was sort of a supreme deity considered in the Roman mythology. Not going to that right now. And of course, Novus Ordo Seclorum, which many have, of course, stupidly made into a bunch of conspiracy nonsense, but it's basically states new order of sort of the world. But Seclorum is not really mundi, it's not really world, but like a new world order. And we must work towards a new world order, but that new world order has to be global and international, and with the consciousness primarily that there's one race upon this world with many beautiful different diverse colors and whatever pig segmentation and beautiful languages and such. But it's really, we're one human race. Chinese, Africans, and Europeans see it as one human race. Myself personally, and for me, let's say it was fighter as an advocate of a new world order, my own theories and policies and spirituality also, because I'm a great believer that there's a new spirituality also arising of love, understanding, and also of different energies that are being unleashed in the world. You know what I'm saying? and that this sort of is basically has to do with freedom, but also consciousness that not just individual, we're individually as units with our own individual liberty, of course, and freedoms, but that also consciousness that our actions have a reverberations, a more collective reverberation, and all that. Another cup of coffee, maybe two and three for that just specific Adrian Dragan, also known as Hana. Philosophy, spiritual, social, political philosophy. Coffee with Dragan, where we digress from subject to subject. Of course, we started off with drum, and now we'll finish just to mention that e pluribus unum is, of course, Latin for out of many one, which basically means, just like the Romans also integrated and sort of like absorbed different nationalities, tribes, and peoples into the Romans, because for hundreds of years, a long prolonged period, Rome gave citizenship to non-Latins, what they seen, because those who had like a sort of Romans originally called themselves Latinus, or the Latin language, but their genealogy and mythical genealogy with Romulus and Remus and the semi-divine, so they attributed a divine status to emperors, of course, and basically pluribus unum means literally out of many one, but it relates to social, political, cultural, even philosophy or way of approaching life, way of doing things. Okay, use this, use this and that, but together we can fuse and we can become one in this and that. So, which I'm in favor of at a worldwide level for humanity to come together in a universal brotherhood. No, no, if any of you hear this, but one of my favorite songs is Imagine by John. And yeah, sometimes in my things as an early child, I've been a dreamer. I was dreaming of world peace. I was thinking that when I'm gonna be 33, like I'm today, drinking this coffee, making a recording. Thank you to my good sister, friend, and often teacher, who's lent me this beautiful black laptop in order to be able to communicate my philosophy, share my thoughts, my feelings. Feelings don't matter, brother, sister. Feelings don't matter, brother, sister. Feelings don't matter, brother, sister. Yeah. So, that, And, yeah. Post. So, yeah, many things was like a dreamer, like it says in the song John Lennon, Imagine. No, I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. As a kid struggling financially, now I'm struggling financially. Just apply for a few jobs, haven't gotten a response yet. I'm trying to get my art thing, my poetry book published. Make a living out of my art, or my songwriting, out of my dancing, my impersonations, my radio. I do it for volunteering because it's for social justice and all that, so don't make a penny. And right now, September 19th? Is September 19th, I'm in the minus 337, no, $377.33 about. I'm in the minus at the bank, something like that, 373 maybe and 37 cents, or 377 and 33 cents. So there's a 7 and a 3 and a 3 and a 7. That's, maybe I'm misplacing it, 377.33 or 373.33. So either or. 3 and a 7 might be inverse, but it's more than 370. That's for sure in the minus. I'm of course protected up to 500 in the minus for the small fee. it's called banks offer that financial institutions, and of course instead of paying fees when you go in the minus of 37, 42, 50, you might as well pay $4 a month to get a protection, a draft protection or whatever it's called in different areas. So anyways, and I have some debt, $10,000 have to pay back, which I'm paying interest on, and so it's not good financially, but physically I'm healing my workouts, which everybody is welcome to join. Live streaming, of course, on Facebook and groups / world citizens plural gym, and friend me Adrian Dragan on Facebook. We're gonna live stream our workouts a few times a week for free, donations accepted. And so yeah, anyway, so my own personal struggles aside, back to the dream. Remember a kid, I was a young adolescent dreaming and writing about the peaceful world of peace, security, and prosperity, which can be achieved step by step. We have technology, it's just we gotta change. Myself have to change. I'm trying to change. Be more loving, more understanding. Charity is something that was never a problem for me. Selfishness, we try to fight it. Right? Physically, active lifestyle, important. We must finance. Mega corporations making billions. We finance the people's health and wellness. Free gyms, finance them, let people go. Right? So dreamer in many regards, and that saw World Federation, united with us. And I'm in favor of integrating the citizens with the police. Just a matter of fact, a tragedy just happened right around my corner. Like, go down the street and turn the corner and somebody got shot. A young man, 23, by Montreal police. Just 3 weeks ago. Tragedy, what a tragedy. Investigation, we don't know exactly what happened. So, I'm waiting to see, an international police force, to keep security and order. But citizens, we gotta be integrated, in it. Personally, don't mind surveillance and security as long as freedom, liberty, sexually, especially for me as a LGBTQ community member, they have to be protected for trans rights, no discrimination based on race. Anyways, blessings of healing, recovery, and strength. Blessing of physical and brainly, and spiritual and financial to all my friends, allies, and supporters. So Donald Trump imposes 10%, which is 20 billion out of $200 billion on $200 billion worth of goods. 200 billion, again, 1 billion is followed by 9 zeros, and so it's a big number. Huge number. Of course, China was retaliated and imposed counter tariffs, from my understanding, on about 40 billion worth of goods. Now, sure, there were problems with trade and the trade balance with China. Here in Canada, there is a certain trade imbalance because China exports, mass exports, right? In the past, since 1984, China has slowly moved to become a mass worldwide global exporter of goods, right? You go into a store, if you look, I'm suggesting this, you do as a practice, as myself I'm doing, You look where the product is made, you see that a lot of products are in China, made in China, right? So since 1984, so it has slowly moved, has integrated itself in the world economy, world commerce, and world trade, but has become main exporter of goods, right? Not that much services, right? To Canada, United States, Europe, Africa, all over the world. Mass production of goods. For example, Walmart. My belief is that more than two-thirds of all the products in Walmart are made in China, and I'm willing to say that could reach even close to 80, 85, perhaps even 90% of all the goods in Walmart. Not so much, of course, the food, because that's more, of course, American, Canadian, and you have other countries, but in the gear, for example, clothing. For example, clothing. You have other countries as well, Bangladesh and India, of course, not just China. Socks, for example, that somebody who struggles financially, of course, went to buy socks from Walmart and got what it was 10 pairs for $10 or so Canadian, and these were made in Bangladesh, of course. Of course, Walmart could pay its employees better, could give more benefits, but what's the poor people who are struggling financially, who had tougher luck, or had some debt, made some financial decisions which propelled them to live in a financially precarious situation, watch those credit cards pay them off. Bottom line is, we citizens, as consumers, do not want to pay too much interest. That's the we gotta cut it out. Cut it out, cut it out. And so those goods. I'm curious to read more about the goods. There are some goods that are excluded. Some some Apple products are excluded from that, and some other products are excluded from those tariffs, 10% tariffs. But you have to imagine that this 10% is a 20%, not 20% out of 200 billion. 10% is 20 billion. So it's a hell of a lot. It's a hell of a lot of capital in terms of the goods of the tariffs being converted into US dollars, of course. And so now, as I'm speaking, right, it's what's the time in here in Montreal, Canada? It's 7:48, 7:48 Eastern Standard Time. Right, but right now in China the markets are open. But just to make a quick interjection, in the markets have not necessarily moved in a negative way. Many have expected for the market to start another downturn because of the tariffs. However, it seems that it has been going up in the past 3 days, right? Since the tariffs were announced on Sunday, I believe, afternoon, morning, or so during the weekend. And it seems that the markets have actually improved, have actually had a counter effect. That both the North American markets, led of course by New York Stock Exchange, and the Nikkei, leading of course Asian markets, have had a positive upswing. Now, of course, this upswing could be more or less artificial. What do I mean by artificial? By artificial, I mean that countering to these tariffs, there could have been some mass investors or institutional investors who have decided not to panic, not to withdraw from the markets, and who have influxed, basically who had injected their capital from the banks, from what have you, from their institutional investors who have injected more capital into the market. but without creating real new jobs, the creation of new jobs, a new type of employment, right? Because I'm an advocate of creating new type of employment and different financing methods to using creativity. For example, in my World Citizens Gym initiative launched on social media, free for everybody to join. Of course, my training, my personal fitness training, I'm an advocate of a public-private infusion of capital and financing people's health, people's health, wellness, to work out. What does it mean? It means that finance the people. So that's one aspect. More or less artificial we're gonna see right until Friday. If there's gonna be 5 days that the market has gone up all week, that's a very positive note. Although as anybody who knows a little bit about stock markets and the markets has studied a little bit, understands it more profoundly, has more wisdom and knowledge, knows that it's not 100% a good and positive thing that the markets have reacted positively to the tariffs by, of course, reason and the laws of the markets, of which are not all, of course, mathematical or rational. We do not base our spending decisions based on uh, just based on rational factors. There's a behavior, irrational psychological dynamics to our spending. For example, take me for fair trade. What? Pay a little bit more, what, this and that for fair trade? Yeah, but it's fair trade. It's fairer because of what? Because of an ethical perspective, because of a morality perspective, because of the bottom line. Find it that it's more just, right? That's one thing. Now, of course, this these tariffs, new tariffs that will take effect. Keep in mind that the negotiations in NAFTA are ongoing. But before I do proceed to NAFTA, I'm just gonna say that this latest development, before it was a trade disputes or trade conflict or trade dispute, but now, from now, 3 days have passed already. I'm going to use the word trade war because with this, Donald Trump has basically said that it's a trade war, and we started. I say we because I'm in solidarity with the American people, not with Donald Trump, who I want to box the fuck out. I said forget out. I did not swear any use of profanities. You didn't hear that. You hear me swear. You heard me swear? You wash your ears. Wash the ears. WASHTHEEARS. Dragan versus Trump, baby. Dragan versus Trump. So he initiated a trade war. Started a trade war officially. And not only that, but if you have been reading a little bit in the news, I've heard it, I've read it in the newspapers, he's calling for perhaps potential other tariffs if China responds. And of course, China responded 48 hours ago, so 72 hours ago, whatever. So he's calling for a third phase of tariffs because the first one was about what, 3 months ago, 4 months, 3 to 6 months ago, perhaps 6 months ago was announced, and 3 months ago they started into effect, right? In June, so, and now we have, of course, the second set, what they call, of course, the administration, they call it the second phase. They said is if China retaliates, it's gonna have a third phase. What China did, China was not gonna be bullied like that. Tariffs on $200 billion. Come on. It's China, it's a civilization. They arose to make their place in the world, you know. You have to understand China's culture and history and its desire to be part of the world order. We should embrace our Asian brothers and sisters with open arms rather than displaying Western chauvinistic tendencies of imperialistic domination and all that. Right? What a mess. What a mess. So trade war. He started a trade war. Right? Of course, China's gonna retaliate. What are they gonna do a third phase? Quit. There were alternatives. You should have brought with China at the table and said, "This is an alternative that we want." Right? And there's a lot that we can learn from China. What I said there's a lot we can learn from China. For example, studying scholarly China's civilization, history, and traditions such as Confucius thinking, not Laotian thought, basically the way, the Tao, and of course many others can say that the Chinese ethics or social practice of putting emphasis socially, philosophically, politically, and spiritually as well, on harmony. It's something that we can learn from here in the West. Myself, I'm saying the West. As a world citizen, somebody who's a citizen of the world, East and West, and North and South. North and South and East and West, world citizen Dragan, drink some coffee time. Flex it up from China to America to peace time. Right? Harmony. So this desire, will for harmony is important in China, Chinese society, Chinese culture. Harmony. 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 Take a few letters out, you got my name, Hani. My first name is Adrian. Hani. Adrian H. Dragan. H stands for Hani, H-A-N-Y, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, increase in advocating for harmony by doing acts of goodness and kindness. Doing the acts of goodness with kindness. Bad business decision, bad for world security, peace, and prosperity. Trade war has begun 4 days ago. Of course, United States and China, but of course, there are two main pillars of the world economy. Of course, India is there and Canada is there in the top 10, but all of us, they shouldn't even think also in that way. We should think to, for all of us, try to combat that selfishness, that greed. you know, because each and every nation and people and tribe and country in the world can come into a new world order and achieve the common aspirations of all mankind, one human race. Now, the moon is above me, but in Asia, for my Asian brothers and sisters, the sun is above them. It's the king of the kingdom of Mother Nature, Mother Earth, Gaia. And then, you know, what do you think about the tariffs, the new tariffs? What's it? Did you think China was going to retaliate? Not. What alternative propositions, what alternatives would have you had for China to not engage in this trade dispute? Sure, there was a trade deficit between the United States and China. Sure. Right? China, I mean, United States of America is the third most populated country in the world, right? After China, India. And it's close enough that India is gonna be first soon, perhaps even as soon as today. They already are in terms of population, right? Why was it so difficult to sit down at the table and say, well, listen, a trade war is no good for any of us, especially not for the, not going to be good for the citizens who are going to consume Asian, Chinese, that is, products, right? Because if China's going to put counter tariffs, prices are going to go up. We already have growing economic inequality. Salaries have stagnated since the financial crisis, right? For the majority, 2007, late July 2007, when the financial crisis began and then the Great Recession began. Some say that we haven't even totally recovered from that Great Recession. Think about that for 1 minute. Many economists, financial scholars, financiers, people who work in banking, finance, the economics have stated that we have not recovered yet fully, and that the numbers are not what they are in terms of employment and what have you, because many have stopped looking altogether for jobs, have gone in unemployment, have gone on social assistance, welfare. And no, how come the governments didn't they do not do enough to encourage volunteering, for example? If those people who receive financial assistance, social assistance, financial assistance, also known as welfare, every month should receive a letter, small letter. This is where you can volunteer in our community. Come, we would love to have you. Break the social isolation, break the social alienation, break that. Alright, and encourage volunteering. A few hours a week, a few hours, a few times a week, a few hours. Right, to break the stigma of power deals. That these people volunteer, they do that, do this and do that in the community. Even if they receive social assistance, financial assistance from the government, welfare, right? Encourage them in volunteering. Right? Social inclusive. So anyway, back to the trade war. Because now I've now used before trade war because it wasn't, in my opinion, but now it has begun. There's of course opportunity to de-escalate skirmishes, these tariffs, because of course China retaliated. Is that Seems the markets have, in my opinion, artificially been made to increase these past 3 days slightly. I mean, considerably, a few hundred points every day for Nikkei, which is the main, of course, stock exchange in Japan, Asia. And it seems that it has not triggered another stock market downturn yet. But again, this can be for several factors, and it's not necessarily an indicator that the stock market will not be derailed because of the tariffs. Is it because it's going to take some time, and of course the products that were exempt and the products that will not be exempt, those companies of course producing them, and the investors who invest in them, and the stockholders, are basically the ones who make the trades on a daily basis. Those are of course the ones that are going to have to pay more attention, to be more thoughtful and more diligent with those specific items, meaning consumer products, the items that I'm talking about, the items that were tariffs. And of course the question of the quantity and the production, and what will China do, and what those producers would do, and importers of course, because you have the importers in the United States. So there's a multiplicity of factors coming into this dynamic of tariffs, right? A major hit, major trade war started, brothers and sisters. So it's no good. It's no good. Trump policies are no good. No good, bad for business, but for world peace. Of course, they're good for business for a few elites here and there, of course. But not, worrisome. Advocate, march, protest, talk with your friends, and explore other possibilities. Once again, blessings of healing, recovery, and strengthening financially, spiritually, and physically and brainily for all my friends and allies.